Hey guys, welcome to my Cubic deck profile. I've played Cubics for over 2 years now and they're one of my all-time favourite decks. In this video I'll quickly go over the deck list without explanations for those of you that may already know the deck, and then I'll go through all of it again and explain my ratios and some of my card choices as well. I'll also do 2 other videos, one showcasing some combos you can do and another just going over some of the tech options to consider. So to begin with, I will start with the main deck. So, first we play the main boss monster, 3 Crimson Nova, the Dark Cubic Lord, 1 Dooza. Just kidding. Play 3 Dooza. I'll probably always play 3 Dooza. Play 1 India Revolt, the Cubic Emperor, 1 Buster Gundil, and 1 Gira Guile. Then we play 2 V-Jam, the Cubic Seeds, and that rounds off the Cubic monsters that we play. Now for the Cubic spells and traps, we play 3 Cubic Karma, 3 Cubic Wave, 3 Cubic Dharma, and 2 Unification of the Cubic Lords. And that rounds up the Cubic cards that we play in the main deck. Now for the non-Cubic monsters, we only play 3 Cyphering Gear Gamma and the 1 Cyphering Driver. And for the rest of the spells and traps, we play 3 Foolish Burial Goods, 3 Monster Gate, 1 Reasoning, 1 Hornet Drones, 1 one-time passcode, 1 Instant Fusion, 1 Monster Reborn, 2 Twin Twisters, and lastly for the main deck, we just play the 1 Pot of Desires. Now for the extra deck, we play 1 Link Karibo, his cousin Ling Garibo, Kagari, IP Masquerena, Underclock Taker, Pentastag, Nightmare Phoenix, and Nightmare Cerberus. Then our only Link 3 is Topologic Trisbania. Then for the Link 4s we play Avramax, Zeroboris, and Boros Sword. And for the remainder of the deck we play 1 Tornado Dragon, 1 Omega, and 1 Thousand Eyes Restrict. So that rounds up the deck. Okay, so now I'll go through the deck in more detail, just give you some explanations for the cards that we run, and also go over the important effects that these cards have. So to start things off, we have the 3 Crimson Nova, the Dark Cubic Lord. So he's the main win condition of the deck. You need 3 other Cubic cards in your hand to summon him by revealing them, and he is unaffected by other monsters' activate effects, whose original attack is 3000 or less. Original attack here is important because it means a monster like Access Code Talker, for example, can't destroy it using its effect. And if Crimson Nova destroys a monster by battle, it can attack once more, and during the end phase of your turn, both players take 3000 damage. So this card allows you to OTK really easily. There are certain cards in this deck as well that can get Crimson Nova well above 6000 attack, so more than likely going to kill if you get that. Next we've got 3 Dooza, the Cubic Meteor Vessel. So he's your best normal summoner of the deck. You can send any Cubic card from your deck to the grave when he's summoned, normal or special, and it's not a hard once per turn. So you'll mostly be sending the Cubic spells and traps to the grave. So Dooza plus any extender such as a Hornet Drones is a Link 4 by using his summon to send Unification of the Cubic Lords to the grave. He does have an attack modification effect that does occasionally come up, which is just a nice added bonus, because people often don't expect it. But yeah, so he's like the main playmaker of the deck. Next we've got India Revolt and Buster Gundil. I'll put these 2 together because they pretty much do the same thing. So you can summon them by sending 3 Cubic monsters you control to the grave. You should never ever do that because you're better off having those 3 Cubic monsters on the field. However, these 2 provide extra names to get your Crimson Nova out. And their best aspect is that when they're sent to the grave by an opponent, and this can be from the hand, deck, or field, which is useful in a format that hand loops. You can special summon up to 3 level 4 or lower cubics from your graveyard, and then add 1 cubic card to your hand. So it's a +3 if your opponent destroys it by battle or something like that, which is really good. So if you resolve this in a grind game, you're more than likely going to win the game. And then we play 1 Giragal, the Cubic King. So he can't be normal summoned or set, just like Indiora, Buster Gundil, and Crimson Nova. He can only be special summoned from the hand by sending 1 cubic monster you control to the grave. So when he's special summoned from the hand, he deals 800 burn damage to your opponent. Now this may not seem like much, but it is actually pretty relevant. So if you have a Dooza on the field and a Crimson Nova, and your opponent has an empty board, say you've cleared the back row or something like that, if you attack with Dooza and Crimson Nova, that is 4,600 damage. Then if you go to main phase 2, you special summon Giragal for 800 burn damage, bring the total damage to 5,400, and then the end phase Nova burns for 3,000, which brings your total to have enough for game. But he is also just like another name for Crimson Nova, and he's also useful for link climbing. And obviously the 800 burn can come up in time quite a lot. If you are going first, you resolve it in your main phase, which is great. Next we play 2 V-Jam, the Cubic Seed. So we play him at 2 because 3 can be cloggy. He doesn't really advance your game state, but some decks do struggle to out it, so you can sit on V-Jam for quite a while if you're just waiting to fix your hand or something. And it does have some synergy with other cards in the deck. But basically, if you are normal summoning him, the chances are you've maybe bricked. So he can't be destroyed by battle, which is really useful. And after damage calculation, if he battled a monster, you can place V-Jam in your spell trap card zone as a continuous spell, and place a cubic counter on the monster that it battled. So cards that have cubic counters on them can't attack or activate their effects. So this is really useful for getting over problematic boss monsters like this Outs Dragoon really well. And you can combo off with Cubic Dharma to make yourself take no battle damage from the attack. So he's really good for that. It's quite a good offensive and potentially defensive card as well. And that rounds up the explanations for the monsters. So I'll move next on to the spells and traps that are cubics. So we play 3 Cubic Karma. So this searches any cubic monster by banishing itself from the grave. So most of the time you want to get this into your grave, and it's not a once per turn either, so if you manage to get all 3 into your grave with the same monster gate, you're going to get 3 searches. When activated on the field, it can target a cubic monster, and then send V-Jams from your hand or deck to the grave to give that monster 800 extra attack for each V-Jam. And this boost is permanent as well, so even if Karma leaves the field, you still get the boost. So this means that in this deck, you can boost Crimson Nova to 4,600. It also has a third effect, which hardly ever comes up, but I'll just explain it anyway in case it does. So if a cubic monster is special summoned from the grave by the effect of another cubic monster, you can send Karma to the grave to half your opponent's life points. But yeah, hardly ever comes up. But if you pull it off, it's a very good effect. So the 3 cubic wave. So this effect reads, you can target 1 cubic monster you control and 1 monster your opponent controls, double the attack of your monster and half the attack of your opponent's. So this gets Crimson Nova up to 6,000, which almost always means you will OTK that turn. If you have 2 in your hand, you can get Crimson Nova up to 12,000 as well, which is it's just really funny. In grave, you can banish it and any number of cubic monsters to place cubic counters. So this is super handy for cards like Ultimate Conductor Tyranno or like the barrier statues. So yeah, he's good for getting over problematic monsters as well. And next we play 3 cubic Dharma. So you can play this at 2, but I like it at 3. It lets you use V-Jam offensively because you take no battle damage from attacks involving cubic monsters. Its second field effect is that you can discard a cubic card to draw 1 card. So this is super helpful for fixing hands, and also if you dump Karma with it, you go +1, so it's really nice. In grave, you can banish it to target cubic monster and add it to your hand. So again, it's very helpful for restarting your plays, but these effects are hard once per turns, unfortunately. And then the last cubic card that we play is 2 Unification of the Cubic Lords. So almost every other deck build that I see plays this at 3, but I think it's better at 2, and I'll explain why. So firstly, unlike the other spells that I've just gone over, it doesn't do anything useful in your hand. It's a fusion trap, however, we don't play the fusion monster because you need 3 Crimson Novas and Unification to get it out, so you're never ever going to do that. It's better having 3 Crimson Novas on the field than it is to have that one that one fusion monster that they run. So it's basically a dead card in your hand, unlike the other spell cards, which can do things. So you don't want to see this card in your hand, and especially not on multiples, because you're just going to brick so bad. So its grave effect is the reason we run it though, and it serves as protection for your monsters and provides us with the option of link climbing. So when a face-up cubic monster leaves the field while this card is in grave, you can banish it to special summon a level 4 lower cubic monster from your hand or deck, ignoring its summoning condition, and it can't be destroyed by card effects or battle for the rest of this turn. So this is super useful for summoning a Buster Gundle or Indy or a Doomvault from your deck. It's also fun to note that if this activates when your monster is destroyed by battle, your opponent can't ash it because it's damage step. Another reason people run it at 3 is it's very useful for link climbing, but I play it at 2 because you can get to any link 4 that I run in the extra deck with just 2 unifications. So to be honest, the third feels more like a backup, so you don't really need it. If you are hand trapped while you are link climbing or interrupted in any way, having the third unification doesn't really help the situation. So while it means you can possibly link climb later on, you'll need to survive at least one more turn with an unfinished board and have those resources in hand to still link climb again. And then you have to have just the right cards to link climb, so it's just not really going to happen. So I feel 2 is right, as it means you brick less, but you can still get to your link monsters that you need. So yeah, that rounds up the cubic cards. So let's go for the non-cubic monsters. So we've got the 3 Gamma and the 1 Driver. So this is amazing hand trap, it works so well with this deck. So the only monster search that you have is Duza. So the rest are all spells, meaning so you've got Karma, Foolish Burial Goods, Desires. So that means if your opponent tries to ash you while you do any of these, you can activate Gamma on your turn. You go +2, then synchro into Omega with it, or you could also use it to link climb. So yeah, it's really good synergy with the deck. What's also very useful is Gamma can't be normal summoned or set, which means that your mills with Monster Gate and Reasoning are a lot more consistent. And then we will move on to the spells and traps that are not cubics. So we play 3 Foolish Burial Goods. So this starts your plays, and you can protect it with Gamma as well. So you play it at 3 because you want to see it in your opening hand. You'll mostly send Karma to the grave with it to search a monster, but you can also send Cubic Dharma or Unification as well if you want. So its effect reads is you can send 1 spell trap from your deck to the grave, and it's hard once per turn. Next we play 3 Monster Gate. So I see a lot of cubic builds run Summoner Monk. I used to do it as well, but I replaced him for Monster Gate as it's just more consistent and powerful. So Monk can brick and he conflicts with Duza for your normal summon, and if Monk gets hand trapped, then your turn's over because you won't have anything to follow up with. But with Monster Gate, if your Duza gets hand trapped, you can follow up with this to mill some cubic spells and traps into your grave and hopefully get a special summon from it. So Monster Gate is a game-winning card. We can only run 6 cards. Sorry, we only run 6 cards that can be normal summoned. So you're likely going to mill some good cards before you hit a summon. And as well, if we hit a Dooz on summon, then we can send another cubic card to grave as well. So you just plus like crazy off Monster Gate. Then we play the 1 Reasoning. We run it for the same reason we run Monster Gate. Even if your opponent calls a correct level, the chances are you're still going to get some good mills in there before they hit a monster. So it's still worth running. Next I'll go into the extenders that we run. So we've got Hornet Drones. So this provides an easy link 2. And also this deck suffers quite a lot against back row, so it can go into Nightmare Phoenix quite easily, for example. It's also very, very handy for link climbing with Duza. We then play 1 one-time passcode. It's just another extender for link climbing, really. Also lets us go into Lingaribo, which can deal with trap cards, which, again, this deck suffers against. And then we also play Instant Fusion. So you can use this to summon out Millennium Eyes, Restrict to protect yourself from hand traps, or to bring out Thousand Eyes to steal a monster. I play Thousand Eyes because I don't have a Millennium Eyes, but it can also be an extender for link climbing, or you can use it to tribute it, just like the other 3, to go off Monster Gate. Although you can't tribute the Hornet Drone's token, you could, for example, tribute Kagari. So these 3 cards here have the added bonus of making Monster Gate more consistent, because you can get a monster out with it to then tribute with Monster Gate, but it doesn't conflict with Monster Gate by taking up a summon or something. And then for the extenders, lastly we play Monster Reborn. So you can summon out your Dooza to trigger his effect again if he's sent to grave for some reason, so it's really good for link climbing again, but you can also steal one of your opponent's monster from the grave to set off your own monster gate or link climb. So yeah, it's just a useful extender. And then we play 2 Twin Twisters in the main deck. So this deck has no natural back row protection, so it's important to maintain some form of protection. I prefer Twin Twisters over Cosmic Cyclone, for example, because you can discard a cubic spell like Karma, Unification, or Dharma to potentially plus off your discard. But this can also blow up 2 spells and traps as opposed to 1. So because this deck is an OTK deck, I think it's more important to clear as much back row from the field on one turn as possible so that you have the best chance of OTKing as opposed to try and play a grind game, because although you can grind with cubics, it's going to lose against control decks like Altergeist or Eldritch if you go for the long game. And then lastly for the main deck we play 1 Pot Desires. So yeah, really good cards, helps you draw into your cubic names or maybe a Twin Twisters or something. You can play this at 2 or 3, because you run most of your important cards as 3-ofs. I just like it at 1, just because it gives me a little bit of consistency boost, and I had the spare room in my deck. I could remove some cards for another Pot Desires, for example. Could take out a Buster Gundil or an Indie or Revolt, or remove a Twin Twisters or one of the extenders. It just depends on preference. So that runs up the main deck. Let's move those away. Okay, so let's go into the extra deck. So to begin, we play 1 Link Karibo. So he requires 1 level 1 monster to be special summon from the extra deck, which means you can use V-Jam. However, the reason I run Link Karibo is so that you can get rid of your Hornet Drones token, which means that you then have an extra effect monster on the field to go into certain Link monsters, or you can tribute Link Karibo off and go into your monster gate or something like that. So it just gets rid of the token, which is really good. Next we play 1 Ling Garibo. So this can be summoned with 1-time passcode, and it's just really useful for dealing with back row that might interrupt your plays for your OTK. So I'll just read its effect for those of you that don't know it. So when your opponent activates a trap card, quick effect, you can tribute this card, negate that card's effect, and if you do, banish it. So it's really helpful for protecting Crimson Nova. Next we play Kagari. So if you have Hornet Drones, you can link into Kagari, add the drones back, and then activate drones again, then go into Link 2. It's fairly self-explanatory, but it's very useful for link climbing or getting some mills off Monster Gate. Next, we play the 1 Nightmare Phoenix. So this is the most common Link 2 that you'll probably make. Its discard is actually handy, because if you want to dump some cubic spells or traps to your grave, then that's always really good. So it just lets you destroy one of your opponent's spells or traps, which, as you know, is what we want to do. Next we play 1 Nightmare Cerberus. So this is another handy utility card. So this is the deck's best out to cards like Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. This deck really struggles against dinosaurs because Ultimate Conductor Tyranno has over 3,000 attack, which means its quick effect to set all monsters on my side of the field would work on Crimson Nova. So Nightmare Cerberus just gives you an out to that, which is really good. Next we play 1 Pentastag. For the longest time I never played this card, but now that I do, I would find it hard to justify dropping it. It allows you to OTK so much more often if you summon Crimson Nova under it, because then you get to do piercing damage with Crimson Nova. So this is really good in matchups such as Altergeist or Guru, ones that are a bit more defensive. Next we play 1 Underclock Taker. It's quite situational, but it can come in handy every now and then just to help you push for a game. And lastly for the Link 2s we play IP Masquerena. So this is one of your best going first options. If you make IP Masquerena and then you have a Dooza on field, you can, on your opponent's turn, go Link 3 into Topologic Trisbania, and then that'll trigger Unification in the grave, which means you get to special summon a monster to zone Trisbania points to, and then you can banish all your opponent's spells and traps. So if you're going first against, say, Eldritch or Altergeist or even Guru, if you manage to get Trisbania off at the end of the main phase 1 or something on your opponent's turn, then, or even main phase 2 sometimes, then you're going to banish most of the field, which can win you the game outright. So yeah, that's why I played Trisbania as well. And then for the Link 4s, we play Mech Knight Crusadia Avramax. So if you open really well, you can sometimes make Avramax using IP and another Link 2 that you have on the field as a first turn play. Alternatively, if you're link climbing, you can easily make an Avramax, which is really good. Then we play 1 topologic Zeraboros. So his utility is very similar to Trisbania, but he banishes everything on the field, so he can clear a board for Crimson Nova. It's also worth noting that because Zeraboros is only 3000 attack, if you have Crimson Nova on the field, Crimson Nova is unaffected, which is really cool. And he's also quite a large beat stick because you do banish a fair amount of cards as well. And now that he's been errated to come back on the next standby phase after being banished by his own effect, he's even better. Then we play the 1 Boral Sword Dragon. So I would definitely replace this with an Axis Code Talker because it only requires 2 effect monsters, whereas Boral Sword Dragon requires 3. But I just don't have an access code. However, Boral Sword can still be useful as it just gives you an extra OTK option when you maybe can't get your Crimson Nova, but you can link climb. And then we've got the 1 Tornado Dragon. So this is just a useful rank 4 for dealing with back row, but we only play 1 Existe because you don't always have the option of making one, as we only run 5 level 4s. But yeah, it does come up if you're using Unification to get a few monsters out, for example. And for the 1 Synchro monster we play, Ciphering Lord Omega. So you can summon this out fairly often if you're using Gamma defensively on your turn. His effect has an amazing synergy with the cubic spells and traps as well. So during the standby phase, you can put a banished card back into your grave. So this could get you another Search of Karma, for example, or put another Unification back in grave so you can link climb further. He also has a hand ripping effect which you can use during the main phase, which is quite good. And also if he's in the grave, you can shuffle him and a card in your in your grave back into the extra deck, which is relevant with Dragma running around right now, so that's pretty good. So yeah, if you're forced to send cards to the grave by Maximus, you can send Omega and just 1 monster and then just put them back in your own extra deck the next turn. And then lastly, we play the Thousand Eyes Restrict. This is your instant fusion target. So if you summon him out, you can steal an opponent's monster, then tribute this with Monster Gate as well, and then you can go plus quite well. But yeah, as I said earlier, you could swap this out for Millennium Eyes Restrict to protect against hand traps, and if I had one, I probably would. And yeah, so that rounds up the deck profile. So as I said, I'll do a combo video next, just showing some of the combos you can do in link climbing, and what some of your first turn boards are, because this deck does kind of struggle going first. And then I'll also do a video on what kind of tech options you can put into this deck. So yeah, thank you for watching.